Hi there, Amy. Hello there. All right. So, Amy, I'm not sure if you're connected to audio. It just shows that you are connected to video, but feel free if you want to connect to audio. It's going to be a small crowd today. There you go. Perfect. All right. So, um, we're going to start now. I'm going to share my screen. It's a small crowd. And so, do this. All right. Perfect. All right. So I'm just setting up my screen here. And so we have a few guests today. So want to just, thank you all for being here. So Amy, I know that I've talked to your husband, and I know you've joined before. So I'm so happy that you're here with your mother. And also I have my parents here on the tasting as well. So Amory and Glenn over there, you can wave. So I want to, just thank everybody. It's a Mother's Day weekend. So, obviously happy Mother's Day to both you, Amy, and your mother, and to my mom, obviously. So what we'll do is we have an agenda. So we'll get a little bit related. For those who don't know anything about, myself and Choco Tastery, I'll just explain a little bit about us, and then we'll talk a little bit about the intro to chocolate. A couple of different questions and fundamentals that are great for getting a good foundation to what we'll learn about the chocolate making process. So we'll dive into where chocolate comes from and the exact process that we go through in order to make the chocolate. And then we'll talk a little bit about chocolate packaging, and then we'll have our guided chocolate tasting to the 4 bars of chocolate that you received in the mail. And then we'll wrap it up after that. So so also feel free if you want to type any questions you have in the chat. You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions along the way. I will be making this engaging, so feel free to participate. And also, when we do our tasting, obviously it would be great to have everybody engaged so we can see what everybody's tasting and experiencing with the chocolate. That's later on. And so what we'll do is, talk a little bit about Chocotastery and who we are. So as you all know, I'm Glenn. I'm the founder and owner of Chocotastery. And so, I've had a long history within the chocolate industry. I've, had this passion starting in like 2009, and that was just basically making confections in my apartment. And then that turned into making chocolate, my own chocolate brand around 2015. And I made chocolate for uh, a virtual, I made chocolate for a friend's chocolate company in Seattle. So I moved away, quit my day job. And after 7 months, I came back and decided to put my experience to use with providing people who love chocolate an experience for, education and tasting, something that you can learn about and appreciate what happens behind the scenes. And so since 2018, I've been, working on doing virtual and in-person tastings. I put together chocolate tasting resources, and I've put together a curriculum that kind of coincides and works together in order to really bring out a really great experience for all those who love chocolate. So that's a little bit about me in Chocotastery and what we do. Um, so with that being said, I think we could just jump right in. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and if you want to answer, you could answer through the chat, or um, uh, oh, I feel like my parents are having technical difficulties. All right. I don't know what else to do here at this moment. Okay, wait. All right, so if you can hear me, that's fine. Um, or you could just log out and log back in. Can you hear that? Give me a thumbs up. All right, one moment. Okay, so the question I'm posing, the first question I'm posing is, where does chocolate come from? So does anybody want to just, give an idea, like where does chocolate come from? There's kind of two sides to this as well. Amy, if you want to share, or your mom wants to share, or type, um, that'd be cool. Cacao, yes, yes. So it's an agricultural product, right? And so it's grown within 20 degrees above and below the equator, which we'll kind of get a picture of in the next slide or two. And then, we have the geographical issue, like the stemming from, where in the world, and we'll see that. We'll dive into a couple of different origins today with our bars, and then we'll go from there. All right. All right, so the next question is, what are some typical ingredients that we find in chocolate? So we have our, your chocolate bars. When we think about chocolate, what do you think, what are some of the ingredients in there? Great, yeah, so, sugar, yeah, that's one of it. Um, all right, and So that is kind of like one of the like additional uh, ingredients, right? So we have cocoa butter. Yeah. So those are two main ingredients. And we see a lot of 2 ingredient and 3 ingredient chocolate, right? So the main um, you know the main backbone is the cacao, right? So with that, you have the fat content, which is the cocoa butter. So that's already in the mix already. And then all you have to do is you add in sugar. Now, there's bars that are 3 ingredient chocolate. So that means that chocolate makers can add in additional fat. So it gives it a nice feel, a mouth feel to it, right? So you have your sugar, your cocoa butter, and your cacao, your chocolate liquor, and sometimes there's makers who add in an emulsifier, and that just makes it a little bit more viscous and free flowing, so that when you're making confections using that same chocolate, it flows better, right? So there's could be some bars that are 4 ingredients, and then obviously um, with a there you go, with uh, some makers who do inclusion bars. So the inclusion bars themselves, they have uh, you know other ingredients. That could be vanilla, they could be nuts or fruits or whatever the case may be. And that is what we're going to have today with some of these bars. So that's why I wanted to point that out. That's a really cool part about it. Um, so now the next question is, what gives cacao its flavor? Now there's several different aspects to this, right? Um, so does anybody have any guesses? What uh, what gives its what gives cacao its flavor? Anybody want to guess? Terroir, yeah. So it's kind of like wine, right? So you have the the land, right? The soil, the atmosphere. We'll see cacao farms shortly, and there'll be a specific way that the farm is set up. There's other produce. Sometimes there's other fruit that's being grown by it. Um, whether it's a very wet environment like uh, if it rains a lot, it's great, right? Stuff like that. And so, similar to wine, you know, the chocolate industry isn't as advanced in knowing the exact, when you taste a piece of chocolate, you can't really tell what mountainside in what particular region in this country. Like, we're not advanced to that extent yet. But we are good enough with being transparent and knowing like what cacao trees, based on the data, all of the genetics and stuff like that. So terroir, yes, is a main factor, and it's kind of like also the DNA. Like we're all different. We all have our own DNA. Um, it's kind of like that with cacao, right? So everybody has this specific makeup of different varieties of cacao, and that gives you a different flavor profile, different experience, right? So awesome, awesome. Now the last question I want to pose is, what is craft chocolate? It's kind of like one of those um, uh, uh, feel good questions, right? What does it really mean to you? And feel free to write in the chat or unmute yourself and share and answer. Small batch, yeah, yeah, definitely. So that's kind of like you know being really in tune to the chocolate, to the cacao itself. What are the flavor profiles? What's its personality like? And when you have that personality, being able to pay attention every step of the way will give it like a special experience, and you get a better appreciation for what the farmers do. And then all those people along the way, what do they do? What they do will actually make a big difference. So yeah, awesome. All right, so this is the map that uh, that I wanted to share, so we can see where in the world cacao is growing. And we'll see here, and now I'm going to add this into an email, this PDF, so we can see and like dive in a little bit further and see like maybe you've tasted chocolate from some of these origins already, but either way, you see the we see uh, the equator. It's called tropical equator in this map, and I don't know exactly when this map was actually uh, drawn up and created, but it does do its justice. So we have the equator, and this is the hottest point, right? It's very tropical. And so there's the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, which is 20 degrees above and below the equator. So this is the belt, like the cacao belt. Basically, this is where most cacao is grown, right? And so we have here 34 different countries, and we have a legend that tells us fine flavored beans, basic bulk beans, and a mix of both, right? So we can see that like the green area, sort of in the what is that? The north of the northern part of South America and Central America, and then 21, 23 is like Madagascar area, and so those are fine flavored beans, and so you have in the like bluish purplish color right here. You have, that's in Brazil and in Mexico. You have some fine flavored and bulk beans kind of mixed in together. And then red is kind of your bulk, your commodity beans that are less quality, but we see, this is in Western Africa predominantly. And, this here is like the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Ghana. These are, Ivory Coast is the biggest producer of cacao, right? Um, so with the Western African cacao, there are pockets, there are cooperatives, like 4 cooperatives that are like really, really strong with, ensuring transparency and organic cacao. And, there is fine flavored cacao coming out of, Western Africa. So uh, it's not an end all be all. So take this map with a grain of salt. Um, but yeah, so you'll be able to have this and zoom in and see and identify all of these places. All right, so now we're going to move on to the fun part, which is the chocolate making process. And some of these pictures and video clips that we'll be showing, I've worked with some of these chocolate makers. Some of them are my friends, and they've had me. They gave me some of their footage and content from their origin trips that they've taken. So we'll start off, going straight in from the beginning. Right, we're all grown somehow. We all are born somewhere, and so these are 2 pictures I got from from Instagram. So we have the left side is from Ben Tre in Vietnam, and the right side is from Costa Rica. And you can see in these varying pictures so much, right? You can see on the left side, this is a huge branch, huge. And then on the right in Costa Rica, they're kind of smaller, right? You don't really you think like, oh my God, these pods are like gonna like just like bring it down, but it's not. You'll see on the left side, these are actually cacao flowers that are growing. And you can see right here, these are like super miniature cacao pods. So they're like humans in and of its sense, they're very small and then they grow and they vary in size, just like all of us. And these flowers are pollinated with midges, and basically that helps bring about the growth. And then you have cacao pods that grow from from these little sprouts, right? So this is pretty decent size cacao pod. On the right side with Costa Rica, you can see they vary in size. So it could be that they vary in size based on like how long they've been alive and growing. But you can see how small these two are. You can see this one's a little bit bigger, and that one's a little bit bigger than the others, and this one's a little bit bigger than this one, and then this one is like ginormous. And they're like, to compare, it's kind of like the size of like a football, right? So um, and to kind of put it into perspective, here's an actual tree from Guatemala on the left side here. You can see it's shaded. You see that there's a lot of these pods all over the place. So it doesn't, it doesn't all grow all in one spot. They can grow in one spot, but they kind of just take on their own, like wherever they start to grow, that's where they'll be. Um, and then on the right side, from the Ucayali region in Peru, which we'll be tasting later, we have a variety of cacao pods on the ground, right? So we mentioned around genetics, right? So all these cacao pods, they all have their own personalities, and they all start green, as you can see in that in the prior slide, the prior picture, right? They were super small, and you can see kind of the tinting of green. But you also have a whole spectrum of color here. You have your yellow, you have your red, you have your orange red, you have your purple. So they vary, and it's all based on genetics. And that's the beauty of it. And um, so these are just like picked right off the tree recently. So they're just on the ground there in the farm. On the bottom picture, these are all, I believe, uh, red pods that are in the shade. And so here's your anatomy part of the event. And this is where we get up close and personal with a cacao pod. So you can see, this here is the outer rind. It protects the cacao seeds. And these cacao seeds here, they're all connected by what this is. It's placenta, right? Kind of similar to humans in a sense, but we don't grow seeds. Women grow children, right? And so here, all of these seeds are encapsulated in this white goopiness, right? It looks like disgusting, right? But it's actually a pulp. It's called mucilage, and it actually is pretty sweet. It tastes sort of like a lemonade and some fruity flavors, some lychee. So it tastes nothing like an actual chocolate. And like any of the flavors we connect with, like in the like a cocoa taste, none of that at this point. And so we don't really do much with this outer rind. We use the inside seeds, which you can get roughly 20, 30 on average. But most of the time, if it's a huge one, you'll get probably upwards of 40 to 50 seeds. And now, so these pods are growing, and once they become mature enough, then they have to be harvested. And that's where farmers like this one here in Peru, they have to, go to the cacao trees and cut these pods down. And with that, they use a super sharp machete. And this fine farmer here doesn't mind that it's underneath his arm. Sometimes there are trees that are really tall, typically 2 to 3 meters high, but sometimes they can't reach it, right? So there's sometimes machetes that are attached to long sticks, and so they're able to cut it, right? And so here is this cow farmer is now going to open up the cacao pod. There you go. That's even up a closer view of the inside, right? So we talked about the green, like it was green in color in the beginning, and so we can see that green here, and then the outer again, the outer shell, the outer rind, the color changes and adapts. And then you have the seeds connected through a placenta, and you see all of these are, the white mucilage around them. And so this is a fun video. So friends at Good Now Farms, they're based in Massachusetts. They went to Ecuador to visit a farm out there, and they were led around by a trusted fermentation and drying expert in the industry. He's based in Hawaii, and he goes and helps these cacao farms around the world help improve their post-harvest processing. So he's going on a tour here and finds this cacao pod, and then will show us a very unique way of opening a pod. If you don't have a sharp machete hanging, underneath your arm.
So what are we doing, Dan? Harvesting one of the few pods that we have hanging around here, so we can taste it. Good. Yeah. And this time of year, the seeds are a little bit smaller, kind of very end of the harvest season. A little less pulp in general.
Yep. Not as juicy as earlier.
Mm-hmm. No.
So you can see, you could easily cut it open with a machete, but also if you bang it the right way on the base of a tree, then you're good. So survivor instincts come in if you really need to open up cacao pods. So yeah, so one point he made was, this time of the year, it's not as juicy, it's not as much pulp, and that varies with time and the atmosphere and how long it's been matured. So yeah. So once we have all the farmers break open the pods, they gather all that cacao. We call it wet cacao at this point, so it's fresh, and sometimes they bag it up, and farmers sell it to cooperatives, or they go on to the next step, which is fermentation. So at the fermentation step, it's a very complex process. We're not going to go into all the science behind it, but the gist of it is it's a 6-7 day process where uh, you know you have bacteria and yeast within all of the cacao that are in these boxes. They react and they form ethanol, which is alcohol, and lactic and acetic acids. And so at this point in the process, this is where all the flavor develops. This is probably the most important step. If you get this wrong, your chocolate may not have really nice flavors, no matter what, right? So it's really important, and there's a couple different methods. This is one box goes into another box, and every day it's turned over, and we'll see a little bit more of that in a moment. And this here is based in Nicaragua, so it's in a cooperative out there. And so these are all bags from farmers in the region that have sold them the cacao. And so you see, that was a bag, had to be maybe 50 to 60 kilos of beans, which is like 100 pounds or so. And basically that goes into these big boxes, these big wooden boxes. And so there's a lot, there's hundreds of pounds of beans that are being put into each of these boxes. And then they're covered with banana leaves, which help provide the enzymes to react and help produce the the reaction with the the bacteria and the yeast. And so every day they're moving all the beans from one box to the next one. And so this is another video from friends at Letterpress Chocolate in LA. So this is when they went to visit the Ukiali co-op. They have, their team there. They're now working with these boxes, and there's about 6 or 7 down the array of, that we'll see. And one woman here is totally, finishing up one of these boxes, adding on your banana leaves, and then you'll see another one, moving one box of beans to the other. And you can see how labor intensive this is. And so you see, like, it takes some time to move hundreds of pounds of beans like that. And then these are the jute bags that are on top, that put on top of the banana leaves, and that helps to prevent oxygen from going in. So you have the enzymes working, and then you have an extra layer to keep all of the air out. And basically, there all of the temperatures are on a regular basis being monitored, and making sure that everything is going to plan. So after the week of fermentation, flavors are, cacao seeds are tasted, and make sure that they're properly fermented. They need to dry. And we need to get the moisture content in beans down to about 7 to 8% in order for us to ship out bags of cacao to our chocolate makers around the world, right? So there's a couple of different ways of drying. There's 3 main ways. One is for regions that don't have a lot of resources, they're able to just put down banana leaves on the ground, and kind of just throw the cacao on it and move it around and make sure it dries just by the sun, or on the side of the road or whatever. But in other locations that are a little bit more structured, they have a little bit more resources, they have drying beds. And here in Nicaragua, there's drying beds that are kind of like, waist high, that are small, that they have like chicken wire underneath, enough that the beans won't fall through, but that any mucilage that's being that needs to come off could fall off as well. And if there's any broken pieces, they can fall through. And at this point, they want to keep moving them around so that the beans don't stick together. Because when they stick together, then it's not properly dried, and it could lead to some other issues. So here in Ecuador, it's a larger production facility. They have these massive drying beds, which there's there's a whole section that they're, I guess, 3 or 4 deep, that they roll out. So if there is any bad weather or anything like that, or rain or anything that's unexpected, they could push these in, and the beans won't get damaged. But yeah, they always pull them out, which we'll see. And also there's these nettings underneath it. So we talked about having the ability for the oxygen also to get from the bottom of the beans as well. And then if any broken ones fall out, you'll see they fall out.
Get these data loggers out of here.
And there you go. So you can see like there's like 3 different sections here. They keep track of every single section. You can see these like pieces of paper. They make sure that everything is transparent, and they have all the statistics and details for every single batch. So they know exactly where everything is going. And also at this time, like they also are able to what I call they could use what I call a chocolate cacao rake, right? So we normally know a rake as like the stick with metal teeth, and that could damage cacao, right? At this point, so they've made these rakes that just have wood on the ends as the teeth. Um, so they move it around because these things are massive. They can't really use their arms to go and make sure the beans are constantly moving around. So with that, they look and see if there's any major damage to any of them. They'll take them out. Any unique objects. Sometimes you'll see pieces of jute bag or plastic. Sometimes there's objects like rocks. Sometimes I've heard that a chocolate maker found a bullet in one of their bags. So cacao is uh, sold and bought based on weight. So when you could throw in something that could increase the weight, people will do it, and people will try to do it as much as possible. So when chocolate makers get bags like this, these are jute bags full of beans, roughly 130 pounds each. They have to then sort them, and this is letterpress chocolate. They're actually going by hand sorting through all the beans on these trays, and you can see that there's holes in there. So they'll be used for roasting. But here they want to make sure that if there's any broken beans, they're taking out. Clumped beans, they're taking out. Any objects as well. Any sharp objects like rocks that will damage the machinery. And so we want to prevent that as much as possible. So we're now on to the roasting step. So pretty sure we all roast food, and we use our ovens. So the same way for like a piece of meat where there's a Maillard reaction, it happens for cacao. So our cocoa beans are going to be put into an oven. So there's various different ways of roasting methods, I should say. This one is a convection oven. So letterpress uses a dual convection oven. They have trays that have the hole, so you have complete heat exposure, right? And then you have a drum roaster where it rotates, and so the heat is constantly hitting all aspects of all sides of the beans as they move forward, over and over and over in a circle. Um, and there's also, tabletop smaller ones that are used for the coffee industry for like testing. But those are kind of like you're just starting out as a chocolate maker, you're going to use one of these small machines, unless you're a MacGyver and you just want to tweak the machine a little bit. But a lot of these chocolate makers, they do have some type of engineering background, and they have these probes in there for temperature readings and timers, and you have all the degrees and temperatures set. So they get the particular profile that they want to bring up the flavor profile of the characteristics of those beans. And normally we get like, we hear, if you smell brownies, that's great, right? Chocolate when roasted smells like brownies. Yeah, we want to get to that point. We don't want to go further, because if we start smelling some really nice flavors, we're killing it. We're killing the entire bean. We're burning it. What we want to do with roasting is burn off all of the bad stuff, all of the vinegar, alcohol notes. If there are any, off notes to the beans, you want to make sure that those are burned away and keep and hold those flavor profiles that are really, really nice. So next is we have these beans. Now they're going to cool down for a bit, and then we get to the point of we need to break them open, right? Because inside the bean is a nib, and the nibs are what we grind down to make liquid chocolate. And so we could sit here and break beans for ages because that's how long it will take. So do it by hand takes a really long time. There's machines that help you, and it's called a winnower. So this is an example of a really small winnower that a lot of chocolate makers use at the beginning of their journey. So basically, there's a cracker like a champion juicer where it has teeth that it would break things up. So with that, that would be here, and you'd pour the beans into the top hopper here, and then you want an air supply. That's key to this whole entire process. So you would have a small dry vac machine that you would hook up right into this port right here, and then once you turn it on, then there's a suction, right? And then once the beans go in and they're now cracked, they have a different mass to each part. So I have a bean right here, as you can see in my video. All right. And so this is from, I believe it's from, I forget where. I think it's, trying to believe, why can't I remember? Either way, these are the nibs right here. All right. So there's a mass to it, right? And then you have the shell.
Where Have You Been by Rihanna.
Wait, what? Siri started thinking I was talking to her. All right, so yeah, so these are the husks, and they're paper thin, so you can see. And so with this, we want to separate these from the nibs, right? And so when we have this airflow, the nibs with the higher mass are going to fall right down into a bucket, and then the husks are going to be sucked into this top portion in this chamber right here. And those are used for mulch or for cacao tea, whatever you want, but they're not eaten, basically. And then the nibs, that's what we use for the next step, which is refining chocolate. So here's a little video clip of a bigger winnower and cracker together that Goodell Farms uses. And basically, we'll see that it goes through a hopper. They're being broken, and then they're separated out. There's a couple of different vibrating levels, and they will work their way down, and you'll see a little vacuum port, and all those husks are going to be sucked up, and they'll go into this big white bag in the back, and then the nibs will fall into the bucket, and that's what we use to refine it. All right, so we see this is a big bin of nibs, and there may still be some husks. There may be a chance that they put it through again, or they may pick it out. But either way, at the end, chocolate is pushed through a sieve. So any husks, anything that's not broken down will be taken out. So there won't be any mysteries in our chocolate because we really don't want that. Um, so next comes the fun part of refining the chocolate. So this is, one method is through a melanger. So a melanger basically is, uh, it could be in various sizes. This one is a tabletop one. It can make around 8 to 10 pounds of chocolate. And this one is the one I worked with in Seattle that could make up to 100 pounds of chocolate per batch. Uh, so the essence of this is to break down the particle size of those nibs. So you can tell with these, they're pretty big, and so they need a lot of manpower, and that's why these are massive stones that rotate in um, in order to break down and release the cocoa butter fat. And so it helps with the flow. And there's, as these machines turn in a clockwise fashion, there's a stone at the bottom. So it's stone on stone. You're basically getting that friction. The heat is building up, and basically sooner or later you're going to have chocolate, molten chocolate. And you'll see that there's a tension knob here, and on these machines there at the top here, they hold the stones pretty much down to the stone on stone action, or maybe a little bit, little opening, so that the nibs could fall in and break down. Um, so here is a video clip. This is like your Zen moment where you have to listen carefully, close your eyes if you want. You hear the crackling of all the cacao nibs as they're going through these big wheels. And this part of the process, the nibs are just going in every so often. Um, we made this was me making this batch in Seattle. So we kind of poured in some cocoa butter as well. So we made a 3 ingredient chocolate then. So when you have heated cocoa butter, it also helps with I guess you could say, lubrication of the wheels and the buildup of heat to break down all these nibs. So here's a little breakdown. All right. So at this point, this will go on for about 24 hours or so. At some point, the maker would add in some sugar, right? Your third ingredient. Um, Basically, sometimes it's just 2 ingredients, like we mentioned before. And at this point, that they're done with all of the nibs, the sugar. It's been running for a bit. They want to make sure the flavor's there perfectly with the micron level, which we're going for like around 20 microns. Anything above 30 microns, we're going to taste a kind of like a friction on the roof of our mouth, on our palates. So we basically want anything around the 20 range, give or take a few microns, so it's nice and smooth. We really don't want any, rough textured chocolate that's not pleasing at all. And so afterwards, during the next step is conching, and basically that's just releasing the tension knobs on the machines and basically aerating the chocolate. So that means like the particles are being rounded. There's a space now between the wheel and the base. So it's basically moving the chocolate around, like splashing it around basically. And that's what helps develop the flavor more, brings out the flavor more. And that happens maybe like a day or two, depending on the process for each maker. And then once we're done with that, we need to temper the chocolate. So we need to get it into a specific state so that we can work with the chocolate. And so, tempering can be very temperamental. There's various ways of tempering chocolate, and so this one is a hand tempering stage, right? You could use a marble slab like you see here, And then we'll talk about another way in a moment. But this video clip is of me when I first started making chocolate um, back here in Hoboken, down the block from where I am now in my former apartment. So this is in my kitchen, and it's about a pound to 2 pounds of chocolate that I'm working with. And so here's an idea of what you can see.
You can't temper chocolate in 5 minutes. You need time, you need temperature, and you need agitation. You need to keep working it, keep moving it.
And so with this, 2/3 of the chocolate are being worked and cooled from a high temperature, a specific high temperature, bring it down, and we're basically needing to get the chocolate, the final product, when this meets up with the other third, to get it to the 88 to 90 degree range. And that's like your beta 5 area, temperature range that they call it. So basically at this point, it'll be ready to be mixed together. Once you're in that temperature range, you can then mold it up. For other makers that have a larger capacity, larger output, making more bars per day, per month, um, like Goodnow Farms, they have to use a continuous tempering machine. So this basically, you program everything, you program the temperatures, and inside the machine is where all of that stuff is happening. And all you basically have to do is pour in the chocolate. So in this basin here, is probably 100 to 200 pounds of chocolate. And you'll see that it'll keep moving to keep it, in temper. And then it would extrude from this top part here. And that's where they would mold up their chocolate bars. And so here, these are, uh, they're not for show, they're actually vibrating tables. So when we have our chocolate in our molds, we want to make sure that there's no air bubbles, right? So these are vibrating tables that are added on to these machines. So what we'll see here with Goodnow Farms, we kind of got an inside look at their whole tempering and molding process. So we have some of their molds here, and we'll see them, vibrate this a bit, and then mold up a bar, put it on the vibrating table, and to get ready for cooling. And so we see, this one, there's not as many marks on the back as you can see, like the pour marks. So this will go for a little while, and then they'll be put on these sheet pan trays and go into a cooling cabinet. And so once the cooling cabinet, within I guess maybe like 10, 15 minutes at most, these will be ready, right? So they're polycarbonate molds. And so when chocolate cools, it retracts from the molds. So it makes it really easy to just tap it out and release them. And there you go. It's as simple as that. Tap, tap, and release. And then you have a nice clean mold. And now at this point, they'll need to be packaged up. So one thing that is important about packaging Sometimes there's I should say there's a lot of different ways of packaging chocolate bars. One way, when chocolate makers were just starting out, they may not have the resources to have like super fancy packaging, and sometimes they just wrap it in foil and paper, and it's nice still. So this Ganell Farms used to wrap their bars by hand with foil. So this video is to show you how intense and how long it takes to actually wrap up a bar of chocolate. Yeah.
I hope that's what you said. I use that line as a joke because when I was, right after Emerson, I worked at a local production company here in Malta. And we would do different assignments for national shows and entertainment time. So we had a shot behind the scenes is school ties, which was shot at some school up in Lane. Well, it was shot here. So somewhere around here. So I went to the set and the AD.
And so you can see at least like a half hour, like a minute or so, or like that was around like 35 to 40 seconds. So times that by thousands of bars a week, a month, a year, you would lose so much time, right? So now a lot of chocolate makers, they have a pouch, a clear pouch, like a resealable pouch. Um, it protects it, it's eco-friendly, and it's easier to keep the flavors in for the bar. So with that, now it's at this point where the bars are now put out on the market. They are now being sold, and that's where our jobs are to purchase the bars. So with that, that ends the process, right? We've gone through all the way from the cacao pods being grown at origin, through the transportation process to get to the makers, through to the end product. And so now, does anybody have any questions or comments on the process or any of the steps? Feel free, you could ask the questions or type them in the chat. But I'll give it a moment if any of you have any before we move on. No questions? I see a no. All right, great. So what's important about the chocolate bar packages, right? Every package tells a story. And so I have a picture, a slide here of various pictures of various chocolate bars that I thought would be great to kind of give like an overview of some of the things that you should look at and understand with regards to the packages of the bars, right? So we'll go through each pretty quickly. Basics, you want your chocolate company name on there. You want the origin. You want a cacao percentage. If there's a specific name for the bar, if it's an inclusion bar, some type of tie into who they are as a company, their branding, or something that's going to entice you with their flavors, right? So all of these here kind of fall into various of these categories. So the first one here on the top left is Dick Taylor. They're based in Eureka, California. And you're wondering why the hell is there a wooden boat on the front of their bar? It makes no sense. There's nothing that ties in wooden boat to cacao, right? But all those the two makers behind that company are carpenters. So they're craftsmen. And so they're tying in the craftsmanship of the woodwork that they grew up doing with the craftsmanship that they put in to making that chocolate bar and everything around it. So that's their theme. They have all the information around the bar on the front, and then on the back they have some information around the origin and some of the flavor notes that you may taste. The next over is more abstract that are dealing with various colors that maybe evoke some emotion. So like Raka, they're based in Brooklyn, in New York. They have this Cabernet Sauvignon bar, and there's like abstract art on it, right? And Soma Chocolate Maker in Toronto, they have this, whatever, I don't even know what design it is, but it evokes some type of like emotion in some sense. And so they have that there for their bar. And obviously these are not the same for all bars, but they have different designs for different bars. And so the next one over is Potomac Chocolate. They're based by the Potomac River, and so they're now in Occoquan in Virginia, and this is like their second generation packaging, which is like a foil lined wrap inside, and it you could do like a little zip lock close, so the aromas are locked in, and then you open it up, you get the smell of the aromas. It's great. So with this, though, they have fish, and so it ties into their whole brand. Um, and so it's cool. We don't have a bar with, we're not tasting one of their bars today, but if you ever taste any of their bars, you'll see on the mold, there's like one fish, like this little fella right here. It's like right in the corner. And so, it's kind of a nice, fun little aspect, that there's one fish just hanging out in the corner. Probably will be the first one to be eaten, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, so on the back of the bar, they talk about their company, their origin, and some of the flavors that you'll get. So on the bottom row here, white label chocolate on the bottom left, they are going the simplistic, high-end upscale approach, very minimalistic. So they have the basics, their logo, their name, um, the origin, the percentage. They'll stick their awards labels on it if they have any, and that's it. But on the back, which I forgot to include in this picture here, but it's kind of like all of the special nuances, everything we talked about before, regarding the origin, the terroir, the atmosphere, the precipitation, all the way through the harvest information. Basically, all the details you would ever want to know about the batch of chocolate, it's there. It's kind of like your nerdy chocolate information section, which is really cool. Um, so that's something that is not it's not there often, but when you do see it, like this maker put a lot into it. They are paying attention to every step of the way, because that what helped produce those flavors in that bar. Um, the next bar is Castronovo chocolate. It's a white chocolate with lemon oil and lemon sea salt bar. For those who may like white chocolate, this is by far one of the best white chocolates I've ever had in my entire life. Um, so I highly recommend it. So basically, this bar is kind of like lemon drop candies. When you were young, you may have had those. This imagery of the lemons actually produces like this feeling inside, like I'm going to get a lot of lemon here. I'm going to be like expecting something big, because they have a lemon tree on it. uh, that's what I expect. And they actually redid this packaging, and it's a even better, awesome looking lemon tree as well, so still evoking the same flavors. And on the back, they talk about their tie to Italy, and the lemon trees from Italy, from where they're from. So that's a nice tie into everything about the bar. This one here, Dandelion Chocolate, they're based in San Francisco, and they have this artwork around it, right? They use artwork from some of the makers, I mean, some of the artists in the San Francisco area, and it's a nice touch to what they provide around their process and what the chocolate maker did to create that profile, which is really nice. And lastly, we'll talk about Maru. Maru is from Vietnam. They have this unique colored, um, you know, packaging here. It's paper packaging. And so this one's from Lamb Dong, right? And so what's really unique about this, and I'm moving to the next slide here because it just, the beauty of it, can't be explained that well than just seeing it. And with this, it's a beautiful depiction of the cacao pods that they source from each of these regions in Vietnam, and they tie the color scheme to the Pantone color that they use for each of those packages. So it really ties in. Like you have your purple, your little, here's black, but it's kind of like super close to it. Your reddish, your tealish, your green, yellow. It's pretty much like photo frame worthy. I'm going to include this in in the email I'll send out. So if you want to just stare at it a little bit more, frame it, do whatever you want. But that's my little gift to you guys. Um, so with that, that covers packaging and its importance. And so now it's time to taste some chocolate. Right. So, and does anybody have any other questions or comments leading in from around packaging or anything like that? No. All right. So we have 4 bars here. So what we'll do, we will be using the the chocolate tasting guide, which I'll go through in a moment, and chocolate tasting sheet. And this will help us mindfully taste the chocolate, right? So what's the importance of that, right? What we look for is to create a connection and to look at and see if it evokes any memories, any flavor profiles, anything like that. Um, and basically, the each step of the way means something. So I created this a couple of years ago to go through these simple steps, right? So the first one is using the sense of sight, right? Looking at it, looking at each of these 4 bars, we'll see what's the shade of brown, right? We don't have a white chocolate, so we won't have a white, but we have different shades of brown that we'll see during the entire process. So this is the sign of the genetics, right? Where in the world it's been grown, all that. Kind of like how we are all different colors based on where we're grown, where we originate from. It's kind of the same case. So that's there just for observation. Nothing really major about this. But next we would go into the snap, right? So we're going to take a piece of chocolate, I'm going to break it, and that's the sign of temper. How well tempered is that chocolate? So is it a really low snap, or is it a supersonic boom snap? Is it really loud? That's where you're going to just say, okay, yeah, it was really loud, or no, it's not. And know that how it was tempered, that's how it was tempered. If it was really, really done well or not. So hopefully all the bars, they're all pretty good snaps. And also, as we will go through this, there are variables that affect the temper. Sometimes temperature in transit is one major case. If you store chocolate in a non-cool place, it could melt as well. And then once chocolate melts, there's no more temper because the temper is broken basically. Then the piece that we break, we're gonna then bring to our nose. We're gonna smell for the aromas. We'll see what we get, and then that goes through our nose, through our olfactory system, and then through our brain, and we will see what have we tasted in our lives that we can make that connection to that flavor, right? And that happens when we taste as well, right? So we paste the chocolate on our tongue, we'll break it with our teeth once or twice, move it around, let the heat of our mouth melt and right, move it around, aerate your mouth a little bit. We'll go through that as well. And then, the aromas from the melted chocolate will then go through the olfactory system again. And then we will then connect flavors to what we've tasted in life. And there's no wrong answers. There's no right answers. It's your experience. So whatever you taste, we will all taste something different. And if you have issues tasting anything, that's why I put together a little guide here. So there's categories of flavors and then examples of some of those flavors in each of those categories. So if you know that there's something there, it's something fruity, you just can't put your finger on it, maybe some of these things could help trigger some type of, connection to what you're tasting. And if you can't figure it out, then that's totally fine. Um, just basically, did you like it or not? And is it pleasuring? Is it good, or is it some flavor that you really don't like? So that's all up to you, and it's all perfect. And also, we want to look at, does it evoke any memories? Sometimes food memories we have are brought on by, like, oh, I've tasted this particular flavor. It reminds me of this time when this happened, right? That type of experience. You also have your chocolate tasting sheet. So if you want to jot down any notes, you could. It's up to you. So you could jot down information about the maker, the origin, and the cacao percentage. And then go through each of the steps and write down notes. If you have any additional experiences or notes on it, you could jot it down for for your record, for your experience. And if you want to rate it, go right ahead, and we will use one of these emoji faces. So it's all fun aspect to it. All right. So with that being said, if you have water, room temperature water, we will utilize that later on when we go from bar to bar to bar to bar. But here, just good to stay hydrated. All right. So the first bar we have is Fruition Chocolate. They're based in Shokan, upstate New York. So they have been around for quite some time now. Um, they basically have used beans from Tumaco, Colombia. And so this is an 85% chocolate. So that means that there's 15% sugar and the rest is the chocolate liquor. Also, it's a 2-ingredient chocolate. So that means there's no added cocoa butter. So it's not going to be as fatty on your palate, but yet you'll still be able to experience all the flavors. So you'll see, their wrapper inside, they go through the process, kind of exactly what we just talked about, right? A little bit less in depth, but still good to note. And it's a pretty cool takeaway, right? And yeah, basically, so now you can open up the bars if you haven't already. So I've already opened up these bars, but I will still show them. So we will see, they have when you have an established chocolate maker, at least like several years, they've gotten to a point where they're making their custom molds. So they'll have some type of key into their brand or logo, something, right? And so this is, if you look really closely, and you could do it even closer for the bar in front of your face, you can see that their cacao pods kind of similar to the design on their packaging. So it kind of all plays together. So now what we have, we want to look at the color. So as like a basis. So this is now when I'm going to ask for your constant input and engagement when we talk about all these steps. So when we look at this color, when we look at our guide, how dark are we talking when it comes to this chocolate? So are we talking light brown, medium dark brown, super dark brown. So what's your suggestion? What's your opinion? You could throw it in the chat. You could unmute yourself and say, feel free. All right, I'll hold it up closer so you can get a feel for it. Sometimes it's easier to look at the back of the bars for the color. And what we'll do here is we'll look at and compare bar after bar. So we're just taking a benchmark here. So any takers? Any takers on the how
Medium dark.
medium dark? There we go. Yeah. So I mean, it's a decent medium dark. So we'll explore because we have 3 other 70% bars. Let's just see how they compare. All right. So now we want to then go in for the snap, right? So here we go. All right, there's the snap. So how loud was it for you guys? Was it like a supersonic boom? I can't even go like low because my ears hurt from that one. Um, so I'm gonna guess that it's pretty loud for you guys. Are we all in agreement? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good, good. All right, so now we have our pieces of chocolate, right? And so now we're gonna hold it up to our nose. And basically where we broke is the kind of the best place to go with this. And if you don't get anything initially, you may want to just rub your finger because of the warmth of our body. We could rub it along the side and it'll release some of that cocoa butter, right? And so it'll help with any of the aromas that we may smell. So yeah, so let's see, what aromas are we picking up on?
Mushroom. Mushroom?
Interesting.
Portobello mushroom.
I like it. What about mushroom? Yeah. So I'm also getting like a deep, like almost fudgy chocolate note, like a cocoa note. Any from my mother? Anything you want to smell? I mean, share that you smelled? You are on mute. Here, I'll help. I'll try to unmute you. There
There
you
you
go.
go.
Yeah. So what do you,
Can you hear me now?
what do you,
Earthy.
what?
What part of the earthy do you
What part
smell?
of the earthy?
Oh, okay.
Like a woodsy.
Interesting. All right. Cool. All right. So we're getting earthy notes, mushroom notes,
What do,
cocoa notes,
what do we write down here? Do we write down earthy or woodsy?
Woody.
Woody?
whatever you want, mother.
Okay, son.
All right. So next, let's taste it. All right. So place it in your mouth. Let's go. And as you're taking in the flavor, you can aerate your mouth. And what I'm doing is just opening it up slightly, not forcefully doing it, and letting some air in so that the aromas are flying up through your olfactory system. And so now at this point, what are some of the flavors that you're experiencing? Are they the same as the aromas we taste when we just, broke it, or are we getting something different?
Definitely very fudgy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other experiences with it? You know, it's that you can experience like the mouth feel right now. It's it's a little, it may be a little dry on your palate. So like that fudginess is making it like rich and decadent right now. Um, but yeah, is there anything else? Um, Maybe like a tinge of like acidity, like there's some type of like maybe like a fruit or something there that just like comes and goes, along those lines. Um, so with chocolate makers, they tend to have some flavor profile, some flavor notes on their packaging. So with this, they say, it's a bold, dark chocolate with nostalgic notes of brownie, butterscotch, and blackberry. So that's on the back, right? And so I tend to not read these notes before I taste it. So you can, guess. What you want to do is to prevent yourself from being discouraged. Like, I'm not a good chocolate taster because I'm not getting these notes that are on the back of the package. So it's all subjective. It's all your own experience. When I was making chocolate and when I taste chocolate, I always take it like these are the flavors that their team tasted, and that you may taste those flavors in your experience. So, the flavors we taste are reminiscent of what we've tasted in life, right? So, I knew that there was some type of fruitiness going on, right? There's also that fudgy browniness, right? But what's interesting is butterscotch and blackberry. So there was that some acidity there that you may have experienced. Um, and yeah, um, yeah. So that was the first bar. And with that, we will then move on to the second. But before that, obviously we want to cleanse our palate. So if you have some water, you drink some water. If you have water crackers, it's, they're unsalted. They are just regular, plain, flavorless crackers. These are one method of cleansing your palate. So a cracker, just having a little piece of the cracker to help remove some of the fat from your mouth, and just make sure that all the pieces of the cracker are gone before you move on to the next piece, or else you're going to be tasting cracker in your next piece of chocolate. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to the second bar. And that is stone grinds. So stone grinds is a chocolate maker based in Scottsdale, Arizona. They're literally a two-person team. And they have won a lot of awards. So you can see, they had an award from the International Chocolate Awards back last year, and 2 years ago. But every year they're seeming like they're winning awards every time. So this is based on the Ucayali River region in Peru. So we met that entire region before, right? We met the farmer cutting open the pods. We met the people who are fermenting the cacao. It's really now popular brand, really popular origin. More and more chocolate makers are using these beans, right? And so, as you can see, it's a generic mold here. Excuse me. And it's a 70% chocolate. So that means now there's 30% sugar and that's 70% cacao, right? And they are also using additional cocoa butter. So it's a 3-ingredient chocolate right now. So some things to just pay attention to is, when we taste it, is, the mouthfeel as well. So when we take on our first step, so we're looking at this chocolate bar uh, in my light, we could observe, but what I like to do is now compare. So compare the back of the bars, so it's easier. And we can see this is the fruition bar, the 85% bar, and this is the stone grinds bar. So what do you think? Is it darker? Is the stone grinds darker or lighter than the fruition bar? Lighter or darker? Anyone?
Seems a little lighter, but we're
Yeah.
in a hotel room with bad lighting, so it's hard to tell.
That would do it. That would totally do it. Yep. So basically, it's a little bit darker. I mean, a little bit lighter. Yeah, you're right. And so you think, oh, higher percentage cacao is going to be darker than the 70%. Like, that's a complete myth. It's completely broken here. The color is based on the genetics of the chocolate. So with Peru, it's a lighter shade of brown. Um, so yeah. Next is where, let's break this open. Now, ready? And how is that? How is that snap compared to the other snap, or just on its own? Is it as loud or less loud? What do you think?
That's loud.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was a little bit less of a super loud snap, but still loud enough. It's really loud, so it's a sign of a good temper, right? All right. So now we have our piece of chocolate. We're ready to smell and see. You, melt the side a little bit to get the aromas flowing. And what are we smelling? Anything? For me, it's a little tough to get an aroma with this bar. But if you really melt it a little bit, you can get something, right? Anything?
I'm getting like cherries or
Interesting.
currant.
I'm getting cardamom.
Nice. Yeah. So I'm getting, there is something there for me. It's very light. It's very subtle. Normally, it's you get your cocoa chocolatey base note, but yeah, awesome. All right, so now we have Amory. Do you have a comment to say? You could unmute yourself because you're talking and you're on mute. What are you smelling?
What?
What do you smell? He's talking to you.
What are you
What?
smelling?
I said fruity.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so everybody's getting some type of fruit note,
Yeah.
which is nice. Cool. All right. Cool. Now let's taste it. Let's go in and taste it and see, are we getting those same flavor notes or not?
dried fruit.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Anything else? Because there's some interesting things that are happening. Amory, do you have, you're talking and you're on mute.
We keep hitting on mute and then it keeps showing, goes to mute.
Okay, so what are you guys tasting? Amory,
Citrus.
you tasting citrus? Okay, right. Yeah, so what their flavor profile, as you may see on the back, it is mocha, like a coffee. You're also
That's
getting,
what I tasted.
Wow.
Tastes the mocha.
yeah,
I'm not used to coffee, so that's, when you taste smoke, I don't like it, you know. Because I don't drink coffee, so that's why.
yep. And then there's the dry cherry, which is what Amy was saying that she was getting, right? And then also like your chocolate note and cedar, like a woodiness, right? Um, so that was unique because of the boxes that are being used for the fermentation process, right? So remember that video clip where the lady was working with the beans, covering them? Those boxes have a specific type of cedar, and so what's special about this origin, and a lot of chocolate makers who use this origin have that established cedar note in there, and that's because when they clean out the boxes, they're they're not like making sure wood is in there, but they don't really wash out the boxes, and so the cedar notes kind of flow through, and they are then penetrating into the cacao. So that's where those flavors coming through. It's really nice, unique, at like a characteristic of this region is that like woodiness. So that's the second bar. All right, and now we're going to move on to the third bar. All right, make sure you have your piece of cracker if you have it, or your water. All right. And so now we're getting into the fun inclusion bars. This one is called the Apres bar. And so what's unique about it, this is made by Ritual Chocolate. They're in Heber City in Utah. So they basically wanted to put together a unique chocolate experience for like a special occasion. And so this was, created as like a bubbly bar, kind of your sparkling white wine, and you throw in some dried raspberries, and it became the Apres bar. So they put it into their lineup of bars. So it provides a really cool like a flavor experience. All right. So this is when we get into like an inclusion bar like this one and the next one, where it's going to be a little bit tough to take on the notes of the origin, right? Because there may be other flavors that are added to it, but we'll do our best. And whatever we experience is great, right? So what's unique about their packaging as well is they have a whole setup as well. They talk about the process, what they do. You can take some notes in there as well, right on this side. Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's all foldable and as like a keepsake as well. And yeah, so this is Let's take it out. Now I've already worked with this one, so I'm trying to get out the bigger piece here. And so you'll see here, it's their logos on the front, kind of like the same ritual logo here, which you have in front of you, so you can see that. And so on the back, you have your dried raspberries, right? So it's really nice. And the nibs were infused with white wine. So sparkling white wine, I should say. And so that champagne is going to potentially be in it as a flavor profile. You're not going to get drunk off of this. It's just the flavors that are actually going to be coming through, because when you have nibs that are, aged in specific alcohol, barrels or whatever the case may be, that they take on the flavor, but they don't take on the alcohol of it. Right. So looking at the bar, like we'll look at the front bar part of it, right? What are what do we think based on the color scheme? Is it lighter or darker than like the Peru bar, for example? Right. Let's take a look at it. So this is the Peru bar and this is the ritual bar. What do you think? Is it lighter? Is it darker?
Same.
Same? Yeah. It is. Um, I'm seeing here, it's like a little tad darker, actually. It's interesting. But yeah, you don't really need to get super technical on it, but um, it's super close. So there you go. Next, we'll go in for the snap. And watch out, you may lose some raspberries while you do this, but hopefully we won't. All right. So that was a small piece there. What do you think about the snap? Is it, decent snap?
Less snap than the other ones.
All right. Interesting. All right. Yeah, it is. It's not as loud, but what I want to share, and here's a little thing. Here's a good, it's a good one right here. Good piece. So you see that it's super thin. Let's take a look at the thickness of this is the Stone Grinds Peru bar. You can see it's a little bit thicker, right? You put it side by side, it's a little bit thicker. Right? This bar is thicker than the ritual one. And the fruition bar is much thicker, right? So when you have thinner bar, it will affect the snap. It may not be a sonic boom, but it will be like a strong snap if that temper is there. So there you go. Another tip for deciphering through your snap. All right, so yeah, let's get a piece. Right, have our piece and smell the aroma. Are we smelling raspberries and champagne or something else? Right. I think it's quite predominant. The freeze dried raspberries are um, intoxicating. It's taking you in right now. Any other notes?
Spicy.
Okay. Interesting. Spicy. All right. Well, let's taste it and see what are we actually tasting?
You taste spice.
I get like a hint of champagne.
Mm. Yeah. Amory, what do you get? Are you getting, what flavors are you getting? You're on mute. Still on mute. Okay, we'll take it that you got some raspberries. All right. So yeah. So um, so with your tasting notes, it's obviously champagne and raspberries here. Almost there. Are you? So here, Amory, did you taste champagne and raspberries? Yes or no? Okay, I read your lips. You said raspberries. Awesome. Good. All right. So that's the
Ron,
wait, what'd you get?
Yeah, I said fruit, I said tropical.
Okay. All right. Because that's white wine has those flavors, right? There's a lot of fruity flavors with within a white wine that are tend to be uh, tropical and citrus and stuff like that. So yeah, very cool.
No
Awesome.
tropical. So the aroma will be tropical.
All right. So now let's cleanse our palates for the last bar. All right. So this one is the illustrious raspberry rose bar. So this is made by Amano Chocolate. They've been around, geez, it has to be over 10 years now. They were one of the first chocolate makers, the first like small batch craft chocolate makers in the United States. And so they're based in Orem, Utah. This bar uses, it's a 55% bar. So it's not, it's going to be a different experience than the other bars that are higher in cacao percentage, right? So they have an entire culinary experience with this one. They use beans from Ecuador, and then their ingredients not only include your cacao, your sugar, and cocoa butter, but they also have raspberries, rose petals, whole vanilla beans, and rose extract in it. So it's going to be a real culinary experience for this one. So I have a small piece here. You can see that their logo is on there, right? And as far as color goes, where are we? Are we aligned with, is it the same as the ritual, right? I think maybe it's a little bit darker, I think. What do you think? Any suggestions, observations?
Medium.
To us, it looks lighter,
Okay,
medium.
very cool.
And again, we're in a hotel room.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I have a really bright LED light shining on my face. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, so now let's go in for the snap. All right, there we go. And I'm gonna just do another one just so you hear it. So this is a unique thing. I didn't get a loud snap at all. Um, was it the same experience for either of you?
Not as snappy.
Yeah, not as snappy. And so this is particularly based on just the amount of ingredients in there as well, right? There's a lot going on, and so the chocolate doesn't have a strong enough structure as the others because the others don't have you know, the rose petals and the fruit, the raspberries, right? They're not like, the raspberries are not on the back of the bar like this. They're ground in. So you see like other pieces, you know, when you break it, you'll see that there's like crystals in there, right? You can see it's really, it's meant to be like, as it melts, you're going to get some pretty cool experience. So let's not wait any longer. Let's smell it and see what, like, are we getting, what are we getting?
Dried fruit.
Mm,
I'm getting floral.
got it. Yeah. It's definitely a fruity bar. And with Ecuador, it's known for being like very floral or earthy. So in this case, this particular region in Ecuador, it's technically more floral. And that's why this chocolate maker had, you know, paired and created something really unique around it. And there's more to his story on the back of the bar that's really interesting. You could read, you know, if you haven't read it already, you know, you could check it out. But I think it's ready. We're ready for tasting it.
We taste raspberry.
Oh yeah. I'm a good mouth reader. I see that Amory saying that she's tasting raspberry too. And there's crunchy bits. Yeah. So one part of the bar, there's like the rose petals in there. There's these like electrifying crunchy bits that it pays homage to this experience that he's had um, back in Paris. So it's a really nice bar. It pays homage to like the floral notes, the fruit, the raspberry fruit. Uh, it's really nice when you put it all together, right? Um, so even with the mouthfeel, like we went through 4 different bars, right? We started at 85%, and then we're down to 55%. And we had like inclusion bars. We got to explore, you know, how different flavors can now enhance just by being an inclusion. Um, so now we have to take on the tough task of deliberation. We need to pick our favorites from these 4 bars. So what I've done is I've created a poll that will pop up on your screen momentarily. We're going to pick your favorite based on the flavor. What flavors, based on the flavors that you've tasted, which one do you like the best, right? And then we'll pick a favorite based on packaging, all right? Which package do you like the best out of all of these? And then we will pick a favorite based on overall, like what had everything. Like if I wanted to, you know, sit back on the couch with TV on as a snack, what bar am I going for with this, right? To taste and to enjoy. So I'm going to launch it. It should pop up on your screens momentarily. And then all you do is just, you know, click which one and then submit it. So I'll give it a couple of moments so you guys can see it. and enter your vote. And I always say during this deliberation time, I should be playing a Jeopardy theme song or, singing it. But yeah, we'll give it a little bit, a few more seconds. Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Both votes are in. So here's the thing. I know there's 2 people with Amy. There's 2 people with Amory. I don't know if you've come to a consensus. If you had different votes, share them now or forever hold your peace, because I'm going to end the poll.
We
All
tried
right.
to be consensus-y.
Okay. All right. All right. So I have the winners here. And so there's only 2. So there may be a tie, there may be a winner. So we'll see. All right. So I'm going to share the results and we'll go through it. So for the favorite bar with the favorite flavored bar, we have a tie between the Peru Ukiali and the Raspberry Rose. It is a very difficult decision, even for myself. I do like the complexities of stone grinds. Definitely, they all brought some uniqueness, which is my goal, and so you can see the differences. For packaging, it was a landslide with 2 votes for the Ritual Apres bar for packaging. It is really nice. It is like that. If we go back to the Castronova bar, which I talked about with the lemon, you're going to get lemon here. You're going to get some raspberry and potentially some champagne notes, or notes that are, intrinsic to what champagne is created with, right? It all comes together, right? And so with the last bar, all right, so we have a tie. We have the overall winner being Stone Grinds and Amano. It is a flavor over like appeal that wins today, which is cool. Very nice. Hope you all enjoyed the bars. And I hope that it was a challenge for, deliberating and all that. That's what my goal is, to make you really, look and to see what you enjoy the best. So yeah, so thank you very much on that. And I'm going to stop sharing there. All right. And so that's it, pretty much. So wrapping this all up, I'll be sending out an email. It'll include the cacao map, so you can see, what origins have you tasted and want to taste and explore. I'll include that nice picture of the pods from Peru. And I'll also include a link to a survey, Google form survey, where you can go in and just give your feedback. It's like less than 5 minutes to fill out. And we appreciate any type of feedback and any way to experience, to enhance the experience. All right. Lastly, you can find me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, predominantly on there. I have a YouTube channel that we are posting videos on every so often. More to come on that. We'll also be streaming soon as well. We're in the process of, streaming. Our plan is to stream on YouTube every so often and intertwine that streaming with Twitch, another platform, that is used for live streaming. So it'll be more of a happy hour for chocolate. You can bring your chocolate that you want, watch me taste chocolate, or watch as I have guests on, excuse me, I have guests on and we taste chocolate, maybe do some chocolate tournaments and stuff like that. So it'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, website is chocotastery.com. We're working on our storefront, chocotastery.shop. So with the if you you'll see probably in the next week or two, I'll have that up, and I'll also be sending out an email to give like a little introductory discount code for everybody who joined, a tasting that you're able to go in and grab some chocolate if you want outside of any of these bars with whatever bars I have available. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining. Feel free if you have any other questions or comments, you could unmute yourself and share. And yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you all here.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Happy Mother's Day to your mom.
All right. Thank you so much. And she says,
Thank you.
she's on mute, but she says thank you as well. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You as well.
All righty. Bye.
Okay, we unmuted. I like that last ball was good.